Madam Chancellor, the humanities guide us. We call out for academics to engage us with the insights of these disciplines. Martha Nussbaum is such a philosopher. Education draws forth our most sensitive and analytic qualities. A liberal education awakens the inner eye of empathy toward all living beings. Education cultivates health. It is a modeling and shaping of critical awareness. Through it, we master the logic of cause and effect without making a totem of this type of reasoning. Liberal education also nourishes intuition and compassion, which lead to the ethical use of science, technology, and political power. The humanities and arts convey ideas that matter and console. They give voice to those who create words and actions to elevate our culture and our consciousness. The humanities make possible a world of justice and equality that goes beyond false certainty on one extreme or pervasive relativism on the other. Martha Nussbaum, our honoree, writes that weakness is not shameful and the need for others not unmanly. She urges that our thought defer to neither authority nor tradition. She reminds us that we have the exchange of reasons and arguments by human beings. Within history, we hold some things to be good and others bad. Martha Nussbaum prepares us for democratic citizenship by arguing for individual reasoning, cultural understanding in an interdependent world, and sympathetic imagination toward others. She arms us for the clash within the individual soul between greed and narcissism versus respect and love. Some hypothesize that our brand of consciousness was born in ancient theater, entered history in the classics, is kept alive by philosophy, and is defended by law. The life of Martha Nussbaum recapitulates this journey. Today, she folds consciousness back on itself. Her public philosophy informs the legal judgments of our time. Her openness to the world spreads dignity universally. Professor Nussbaum, we hope your work flourishes. You engage the world through learning. Madam Chancellor, on behalf of the Senate of this university, I now ask that you confer upon Martha C. Nussbaum the degree Doctor of Letters, honoris causa.
Martha Nussbaum, by virtue of the authority vested in me and in the Senate of this university, I hereby admit you to the degree of Doctor of Letters, honoris causa. Dr. Nussbaum will be hooded by Dr. Gordon Meyers. He is the Associate Vice President Academic, and Dr. Kate Ross, our Registrar.
Your addresses. It is with great pleasure that I now call on Dr. Martha Nussbaum for her convocation address. Dr. Nussbaum.
Madam Chancellor, President Petter, Provost Driver, distinguished faculty, alumni, parents, friends, and above all, graduates. First, I want to just say how deeply moved I am by this honor you've given me. But then I also want to say that on this joyful day, we're here to celebrate a university with a unique history and distinctive values. But this is also a time to reflect about the value of the ingredients of a traditional liberal arts education, because this type of education is under assault all over the world in our time of economic anxiety. The humanities, social sciences, and arts, the core of a time-honored liberal arts education, are being downsized and downgraded, not here, but in lots of places, seen as useless frills at a time when nations must cut away useless things in order to remain competitive in the global market. They're rapidly losing their place in curricula and in the minds and hearts of parents and young adults. Indeed, what we might call the humanistic aspect of science, the imaginative, creative aspect, and the aspect of rigorous critical thought are also losing ground, as nations prefer to pursue short-term profit by emphasizing useful, highly applied skills. Why should we care? What difference would it really make if the humanities and social sciences were downsized and downgraded in favor of technological and pre-professional studies? Whatever your major subject, you graduates have all had breadth courses that take you into the humanities and the social sciences, and from those majors into science. So, what is the value of that breadth? And I'm going to focus on the humanities since those are the most threatened. We could go in a number of directions from here, since a liberal arts education does many things. First of all, it's a preparation for life, and people typically appreciate more and more as life goes on the expansion of their minds and hearts that an education in the humanities makes possible. We could also talk about business, since leading business educators around the world are emphasizing more and more the need for an education that cultivates the imagination and the critical faculties. So important in a mobile economy where we need innovation and people can't get by with a set of skills learned by rote. China and Singapore, who focus single-mindedly on business success, not on democratic citizenship, have both conducted major educational reforms to inject more humanities and more critical thinking into their curricula. But I now want to focus briefly on civic engagement, a focus of your president, about the role of liberal education in producing the kind of citizen who can keep democracy alive and realize its promise. How does a university education that contains a substantial contribution from the humanities contribute to the health of democracy? Three capacities, above all, are central to the survival and progress of democracy in today's complicated world. First is the capacity for critical examination of oneself and one's traditions, for living what Socrates in ancient Athens, the world's first democracy, called the examined life. This means becoming people who don't just defer to authority or fashion, but who reason together about their choices, producing a truly deliberative and respectful democratic culture. Modern democracies, just like ancient Athens, are prone to hasty and sloppy reasoning and to the substitution of invective for real deliberation. Critical argument gives people a way of being responsible, testing claims before they accept them, and also respectful, listening to others rather than just trying to defeat them. It's an understatement to say that we urgently need these abilities in today's political culture. Responsible democratic citizens need, second, an ability to see themselves not just as citizens of some local region or group, but above all as citizens of the whole world, as human beings bound to all other human beings by ties of recognition and concern. As citizens, we're often called on to make decisions that require understanding of a nation's racial, ethnic, and religious groups, and of the situation of women and sexual minorities. And we also need to understand how issues such as agriculture, human rights, climate change, business and industry, and, of course, violence and terrorism are generating discussions that must bring people together from many different cultures and nations. Becoming good citizens in a complicated world involves understanding how those discussions might possibly move forward. But citizens can't think well on the basis of factual knowledge alone. So the third ability of the citizen, closely related to the first two, is what I would call the narrative imagination. The ancient Athenians understood this, creating tragic and comic festivals as central democratic institutions that fostered sympathy and imaginative engagement with the lives of others. We're all born with a basic capacity to see the world from another person's point of view, but this capacity needs development, and it particularly needs development in areas in which our society has created sharp separations between groups. We know that human beings are all too capable of what psychologist Robert J. Lifton, in his powerful book, The Nazi Doctors, calls splitting. That is, we can live lives rich in empathy with our own group, recognizing the humanity of its members, while denying humanity to other groups and people. Good citizenship requires that we challenge our imaginative capacity, learning what the world looks like from the point of view of people we all too often try not to see. Novelist Ralph Ellison, in a later essay about his great novel, Invisible Man, wrote that a novel like his could be, quote, a raft of hope, perception, and entertainment on which American culture could negotiate the snags and whirlpools that stand between us and our democratic ideal. That novel, of course, takes what he called the inner eyes of the white reader as its theme and its target. The hero says he's invisible to white society, but this invisibility, he says, is an imaginative and educational failing on their part, not a biological accident on his. Here at Simon Fraser University, where such a large proportion of your students come from a wide range of minority cultures, you're a microcosm of today's Canada, and your instruction has encouraged you to inhabit many different perspectives. Your new strategic vision here at SFU recognizes the centrality of the humanities to learning across the disciplines. But what would we have if that weren't so? If these three parts of liberal arts education withered away? Nations of technically trained people who don't know how to criticize authority, useful profit makers with obtuse imaginations. What could be more frightening than that? But the future doesn't have to unfold this way. It's in all our hands, and especially in the hands of all of you who have been giving and receiving this kind of education. You know its value, and you'll come to know it more as time goes on. You graduates can spread the word that what happens on this campus is not useless, but crucially relevant to the future of democracy in the nation and in the world. And you can begin right now to think of ways to keep pursuing the goals of that education in whatever it is you do in life. Graduation should be not the end of a liberal arts education, but just the beginning. Congratulations. May you live joyful and productive lives in our complicated world, taking your education with you and fighting to keep it alive for others.